Okay, so it's just gone 8 o'clock, so I think we'll get started and people will join as and when. So welcome everyone, my name is Sarge and this is another edition of Wisdom Talks by Think Gita, where every week we focus on a different topic to bring to light spiritual truths and wisdom from the Bhagavad-gita, which is an ancient Vedic scripture that still rings true today. And this week's topic, we're talking about habits. So we've got Raj Mukund here, who's going to be shedding some light on how we can practically form good habits with us in a meaningful way. Cultivating habits is how we define our chosen path and how we take charge of time. Good habits, bad habits, learned habits, there are many types. Do old habits really die hard? That's a question maybe we can dive into. What defines a habit? How can we formulate them so they serve us in a way that spiritually nourishes our lives? All of these questions are going to be answered today and we're going to explore them. Thankfully, we have Raj Mukund here who's going to shed some light on how the power of habits can be harnessed practically. So before we dive in, I'd just like you all to meditate on the topic of habits, and we want this to be an open discussion. So if everyone could please share maybe a thought on what habits means to them, or a reflection on how you might be trying to formulate a new habit in your life. And if you're feeling super open to share maybe a habit that you might be trying to kick, we'd really appreciate your input. So feel free to share that in the chat box. I'm going to lead a very short invocation prayer before we start, so we can all get ourselves into the room. So if you can close your eyes, or you can just tune in. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Namine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to introduce our speaker, Raj. Raj heads up the Think Gita project. He's a familiar face to those of you who've been tuning in and seeing us in person in Covent Garden. Raj is a GP, pharmacist, and a dynamic spiritual speaker. He teaches Vedic philosophy to large audiences. He runs well-being initiatives for the NHS all over the UK. And he presents knowledge in a practical and applicable way to daily life. He's also a key leader in fundraising and supporting a Food for Life initiative in London, which feeds thousands of hot meals per week to the homeless. So we're super fortunate to have him joining us here today. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, Sarge. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for introducing me. I always feel embarrassed hearing that introduction. And hopefully most people know me now, so the time for introductions hopefully can end soon. But yeah, I don't know if the chat is open, but it'd be great to hear from everyone. What habit are you trying to cultivate right now? Maybe one you're trying to kick. I want to keep this session really interactive, really engaging. I was actually just reflecting on habits, and the last few days I just realized how important cultivating habits and such an important topic, and it's probably one we're all kind of struggling with or having some kind of qualm about. In some way or another we always kind of battling with ourselves about habits. How do we cultivate good habits? How do we kick bad ones? It's just a constant thing. So I think it's such an important topic, so I really wanted to dive deep into it and just share some honest points and reflections and kind of really get into it today. So just write on the chat, even if it's one word, What does habits mean to you? Where are you right now with your habits? Good, bad, maybe a habit you're trying to cultivate. What is it? Like we're almost 2 months left to the end of the year. What habit are you trying to dance around? Yeah, so please, it'd be great to hear from everyone. I'm just going to share my screen as well. My laptop is playing a bit up right now. I don't know why. Okay, maybe I can share now. Yeah, so let me know if you can see my screen. I'm just going to share a little presentation. So yeah, and we're just going to kind of get into the topic of habits. Now, the first point I wanted to make around habits was defining how the importance of habits. There's an analogy where, if you're going from here to Mexico on a plane, and if you're 3 degrees off, 3 degrees change in direction, you can end up somewhere completely different. So I think if you're going to America, you can end up in Mexico just by a change of 3 degrees. It's the same with habits and our lifestyle, the things we do every single day. They actually make such a big difference. Like the one thing that you might do day to day, even if it's for a short time, building up over a period, it can actually make a real difference in trajectory. So they say, like, our thoughts, like from our thoughts, we create our actions. From our actions, we create habit. From habit, we create our character. And because of character, that our character forms our destiny, because it's based on the decisions we make. It's based on, depending on our character, like how we react to certain situations. So, and it all stems from the idea of thought. And then from thought, we get habits, we get action. And from action, we get habits. And then from habits, we get our character. So this is such an important concept. How do we cultivate that good habit? And the key aspect and the first point to understand about habits is we have to understand what are good habits and what are bad habits. We have to get into a position where actually we have to know where we're going. It's like that plane analogy, which destination are we trying to get to? Where are we trying to go? I can just thank you for those who wrote on the chat. Some really nice points coming through. Trying to get back into the habit of waking up early, re-energized. Louise saying up early again. Pragya said wake up early. So a lot of you waking up early. Okay, great. Some positive habits there. So yeah, this point is this point of habits is really important. And the first point is knowing what's a good habit, knowing, setting that parameter, setting that end in mind. So I don't know if you've read this book there's a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the first concepts that talks about, which is actually, if you speak to the author, if you hear about the author, he actually admits that he took a lot of that from the Bhagavad-gita. And literally, he took that inspiration of that book from the Bhagavad-gita. It's a really famous book. I read it a long time ago. And in there, he shared the importance of setting the goal having the goal in mind. So what is the end? What is your end point you want to go to? And I guess for us, I mean, what is the ultimate goal? Like, what do we all want to be? Maybe you can write on the chat. Let's see if anyone gets it. And it's a common answer, a common question that we ask. But what is it that we all want to be? What is it we all want to achieve? Being peaceful, Louise, yeah. Happy, Lisa, yeah. Content, happy, Shreya, perfect. We're all looking to be happy. We're all looking for that happiness, that fulfillment, that contentment. And how do we get that happiness? Yeah, how do we get that happiness? So I'm going to give you an acronym and you can write this down. And funnily enough, no prizes for guessing what the acronym is for today. The acronym is habits. So you got it right there. You can remember it. The acronym is habits. And the first habit, or the first H in this acronym for us to kind of tackle, and the idea is to first know what's the goal, what's the end in mind. And for us to know that, we have to hear. We have to hear. Hearing is the first habit to cultivate, the most important starting point to making a difference of habits. Because if we don't know which habits are good, which habits are bad, if we don't know our identity, if we don't know the parameter of what we're working towards, we're not actually going in the right direction. So it starts with hearing. And when I mean hearing, I also mean reading, but I mean connecting with like the philosophy, connecting with wisdom. When we're hearing that wisdom, when we're understanding that wisdom, we kind of know and develop what are the good and bad habits for us to understand, and how do we cultivate these good and bad habits. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm just going to try and share my screen. Again, I'm going to give it one more shot, otherwise we're just going to not go ahead with the slides. I actually just made the slides half an hour before this talk. But I don't know if it's gonna work. Let me see. Okay, I'll share my screen.
Yeah, we can see it. I can see your screen.
Okay, you can see that.
Yeah.
Just let me know if it's okay. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, all good.
Okay. You can't see like the image. Okay, let me just close that. Okay. Yeah. Sarge, is that okay?
That's good, man. All good.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So here we go. Here's our habits acronym. But the reason I did an acronym, Keshav Swami is always very much hot on doing acronyms. So I thought I'd be inspired by him and just do a little acronym. I think I thought maybe he might be proud as well. It's us wisdom talks coming together and doing an acronym for habits. Maybe he's already got an acronym for habits. I actually didn't ask him. But the first acronym is hearing. So we'll go through each of these. But H stands for hearing. And as I was mentioning, we have to have the end in mind. So it's just like a chess game. You like the different people play their different moves. They're playing whatever the moves are. You have to know where is it you're going? What is the direction you're making? And that direction comes from the Bhagavad-gita. And what we actually learn from the Bhagavad-gita, if you look at it conceptually, Arjuna is actually hearing from Krishna. He takes the first step he takes is he hears from Krishna, and he asks this question. He goes, maybe somebody on the call can unmute and read this out. We can have maybe a volunteer.
I can do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am confused about my duty and besieged with anxiety and faint-heartedness. I am your disciple and am surrendered to you. Please instruct me for certain what is best for me.
Thank you so much. So yeah, this is one of the turning points in the Bhagavad Gita that we learn about. When Arjuna is confused, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to act. And what he does is he asks Krishna, please help me, please instruct me. And Arjuna basically surrenders at that point, and he's ready to hear. He's ready to hear what he should do, how he should act, what is his next steps. Now, the interesting thing is, if you go through the Gita, Arjuna's got to a point where he doesn't know whether to fight or not, and he doesn't know what to do. He's confused. But if you look at the Gita, if you study the Gita in detail, what Krishna actually explains to him, he explains to him how to be, right? He explains to him how to build character, as a person. He doesn't explain to him your goal is to kill these people, and after that, after you achieve your goal, you're going to get this and this. He's not talking about goals. He's talking about a way of being, right? The book is a personal development book, if you look at it, and it very much talks about how to be. So when we're looking at habits, when we're listening to the philosophy of the Gita and another wisdom, even from other scriptures, we're actually understanding how to be. And that's where our hearing starts. Habits isn't about goals, it's about us developing a character. So it's not about, say, becoming, like running a marathon. Like habits isn't about, say, I want to form a habit where I want to run the marathon. No, actually, a habit actually becomes instilled where I actually become a runner. So I'm a runner and I actually run, and that's my goal. So Krishna talks about your Kshatriya, this is your duty. So how do we form that? Is because through hearing, through correct hearing, then we get to the point. So when I started my spiritual journey all them years ago, probably I think about 5-6 years ago, when I really got deep into it, the first thing I actually did was read a lot of books and try and understand, like, what is it this spirituality is talking about, what is it sharing. And that was like my first parameter. And the more I understood which habits to cultivate. So I never knew about meditation. Like, I never knew meditation was a thing. I actually didn't know what it was about. Then I started hearing more and more. Then I started hearing, okay, meditation is good. Then I heard, like, oh, okay, meditation is good for you in the morning. Okay, then I heard, journaling is good for you. And then I heard, reading is good for you, and associating. So having a good diet. So all these things came once I started hearing, once I started reading the wisdom. So the first point we have to start at is hearing. Like, when we hear from the right source, we hear the right habits, we kind of instill. And it's a constant process. You're constantly hearing, you're constantly refining. But that is the stage you start at. So the H is hearing in our habits. And now we're going to go to the A. So the A is acting goodness. So Bhagavad-gita talks really nicely about the three modes of material nature. And actually, everything we do, whatever habit we perform, can be in the mode of goodness, in the mode of passion, and in the mode of ignorance. So, and even spiritual habits can be also done in these three modes. So one of the key principles of us identifying and defining our habits is to act in goodness. And for those of you who don't know what the mode of goodness is, I'll just briefly explain. So there's three modes. One is the mode of ignorance, which feels bad now and gives bad results. So that could be something like drinking alcohol, or like just being very lazy, and just sleeping all day. It feels bad, and then it also, the result is bad. Something in the mode of passion feels good now. For example, eating lots of pizza all the time feels good now, but then actually it's bad for you. Or eating a lot of chocolate or whatever. So it feels bad, feels good now, but then it's bad for you. And what's in the mode of goodness? Mode of goodness is difficult now. So maybe going to the gym feels really tough, or meditating, waking up early feels tough now, but in the long term, it's good for you. And everything we do can be categorized in the three modes of material nature. So it doesn't matter what habit you cultivate. If you're doing a habit in the mode of ignorance, that's not going to be moving you to the right direction. Even devotional things, or even spiritual things, you can do that in the mode of ignorance. I'm just going to maybe do a little quiz with everyone. Let's talk about some habits, and I maybe want you to write in the chat whether you feel like this habit is in the mode of goodness, in the mode of ignorance, or in the mode of passion. Okay, so the first one is procrastination. Which mode do you guys think it is? Just type your answer in the chat. Ignorance. Thank you, Koshika, Sarah, V, Drishti. Okay, perfect. You guys got it. It's in the mode of ignorance. Okay. Stealing. What is it? Stealing. Goodness, passion, or ignorance? Sarah, passion. Sandhya, passion. Mino, passion. Koshika, ignorance. Okay. We have to give... Okay, most of you got it. Yeah, in the mode of passion. Yeah, because you're acting. So yeah, perfect. You guys got it. Okay, let's go for the next one. Okay. Listening to classical music. I don't know if anyone listens to classical music on the call. Goodness. Naina, goodness. Louise, goodness.
A lot of
Christy.
classical music fans on the...
Oh, really? Oh, amazing. Good. Good. Ashmita. Okay, great. Okay. Let's go for a few more. Okay, going to the pub or to the bar. I haven't been to a pub. In the mode of passion, ignorance, pragya. Yeah, maybe. Ignorance. Yeah, I think that's debatable. Okay. Studying 6 months before an exam. I don't know if anyone's done that before, studying 6 months before an exam. I never could manage that. Goodness, passion, goodness. Okay, most of you have got the idea, got it. Everything we do can be done in either of these modes. Every part of our day can become in any of these modes. And for us to form really good habits, we have to try and move everything we do into a consciousness of the mode of goodness. And that doesn't mean that's going to elevate us spiritually, but it brings us to the airport. You know, there's an analogy, Keshav Swami often uses it. It's like being in the mode of goodness is like going to the airport. Like, it doesn't mean you're going to get on the plane, but it means you're ready to get there. So as to find real happiness through spirituality, we have to do things in the mode of goodness. So whatever it is, you can do whichever habit you're doing, every habit you're doing, but you can cultivate that in the mode of goodness. Now, obviously, habits are categorized in different modes, but even the spiritual habits are in different modes as well. Now, the mode of goodness, the reason it's the second important point in the acronym, if you look at the Bhagavad-gita, out of the 700 verses, 100 of these verses are based on the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. It talks about the three modes. Which is why it's so important for us to understand these modes of ways to act in, and acting in the mode of goodness is something that can make a big difference. It makes all the difference, actually, however we act. So yeah, try and think about it. So being in the modeness means taking a step back, planning your day, planning your habits, being conscious, acting in a way where, you know, you're not reactive, but you're proactive, taking time out and planning things in advance. Yeah, like even meditation, right? Like that can be in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. So like in the mode of ignorance is where, like, say you're chanting and you're just like completely not concentrating. In the mode of passion, it means you could be texting at the same time, or talking to someone. And then in the mode of goodness, it means you're actually concentrating, you're removing any distractions. Even when you're serving, it could be, you could be doing service in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. So one key aspect for everyone to remember is everything you do, think about it. Am I doing this in the mode of ignorance, in the mode of passion, or in the mode of goodness? And the more we can do this in the mode of, goodness is the more we can make progress. Okay, maybe somebody can just read this out. So this is ending this point? Any volunteer just want to quickly read it out for us?
I can read it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Christina, you go.
A sinless one, the most, sorry, very bad lighting, the most of goodness, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode becomes conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's like,
Yes.
we have this saying, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. When you wake up and you're like, you're just having a bad day, you're having a bad day. The mode of goodness basically is engineering everything in your life for you not to have that waking up in the wrong side of the bed. It's for you to plan your day, plan your life in a way where you're constantly trying to be in the mode of goodness. It's where you're knowing not to send that angry email or that angry text to that person that's really annoyed you. I'm sure we've all been through that where, and then you send it, and then a day later you're like, oh my God, why did I send that? So yeah, being in the mode of goodness, and every habit is in these three modes. Now, what is the impact of being in a mode of goodness? Now, I'll share 5 impacts with you of what we get from being in the mode of goodness. One is better health. So obviously, if you're in the mode of goodness, you're eating better, you're eating cleaner, you're eating a more of a conducive diet, like a vegan or vegetarian diet, a healthy, balanced diet. You make better decisions because your mind is contemplating on what to do and how to act. And and it comes down to even the decisions of picking between doing good habits and bad habits, or picking between a craving for a bad habit versus doing the right thing. The more we're putting ourselves in that mode of goodness, the more we're constantly making that better decision of which habit we're going to pick and which habit we're going to start and stick to. Better character, like I was mentioning, when you wake up at the wrong side of the bed. Mode of goodness creates that character within you because it's that thought that goes on a deeper level. You consciously have that thought, which then brings about that character. So you react differently, you respond differently, your character, you become more sympathetic, and you have better relationships. I mean, we're all looking for that relationship with people, we're all looking for that connection. So you can connect better with people when you're in the mode of goodness, because actually you're not reacting angrily. You're not reacting impulsively. You're not reacting, based on a temporary, aspect. Your relationships, you understand, okay, I value this relationship more than whatever argument I'm going through, or whatever issue I'm going through. I had one lady at work, and I remember we had a bit of a disagreement, and my mentor at that time, I was telling him this on my mind, and he was like, oh, you should go up to her and you should like try and reset that relationship. And I was like, no, I haven't done anything wrong, it was her fault. And he's like, I challenge you, like, why don't you actually do it? And I remember sitting in my office, and like, you get these like messages where you can like ping your coworker. So I pinged her, said, hey, can I see you? And she replied like within 5 minutes, like, yes, come up in 10 minutes or whatever. And I was like, oh shit, I have to go and speak to her now. So I got up, and I could almost feel like a physical barrier like stopping me from going up to speak to her. And I actually did it. I thought, okay, fine, I'm going to do it. So I did it, opened the door, went upstairs, I knocked on the office, and opened the door. And then she was sitting there, like in her office with her desk. And I said, hey, like, can I speak? And she goes, yes, sure. So she actually, she had like a sofa in her office. So she came, got a notepad and pen. And then she sat down and she's like, right, What do you want to talk about? And I was like, oh God, here we go. And then I said to her, because I know I was dead to do, I was challenged to it. I said, look, I just want to say, like, our relationship hasn't been what it was. And maybe I feel like we should restart. And her reaction was something incredible I wasn't expecting. She actually got up, she put a notepad and pen down. She got up and she goes, Raj, come and give me a hug. Like, I have been feeling so bad that our relationship hasn't been what it is. And I'm so happy that you came and spoke to me. And she actually she had tears in her eyes. And that relationship changed. That changed because I was able to think in the mode of goodness. I was able to put that relationship first over what struggles that we had, whatever argument or petty thing that it was. I put that second. Actually, the relationship came first. And that's what being in the mode of goodness does. So ultimately, it brings you happiness. It's a tool that brings you to that point of naturally you start becoming happier, but over a long period. It's not about that sense gratification. Okay, so we're getting through these. So the B stands for block the bad. Okay, you got this like Bruce Lee image here where he's like blocking. We have so many bad elements around us, bad distractions. Like, they say the material nature, Maya, is like really strong. So many sensory impulses coming our way, right? And what happens is, actually it's designed, like the things are designed to make you addicted. Like if you look at your phone, right? They actually consciously design it to help you, to make you more addicted to that phone. Like shorts, YouTube shorts now, they're designed in a way to keep scrolling. The pop-ups, your phone, you're constantly like wanting to be attracted to it. The type of images that pop up, they know what you're going to be attracted to, what you're likely to click. I mean, it's bonkers that even your phone is listening to you. If you've got an iPhone and you've got Siri in it, it's actually listening to you. Sometimes you might be talking about something and an ad pops up. So we have these bad habits, bad things that come up, and it's literally like fighting it. You have to block the bad things that come up. And it's not easy, but we have to make a conscious decision to make sure that we keep the things that we know that aren't good for us, we have to keep them away. So whether it be like, putting your phone away, so let's say, for example, one of the habits you want to cultivate is, not checking your phone too much, or waking up early. A lot of you said waking up early. Now, to wake up early means you have to sleep early. And to sleep early, and I'm guessing 9 out of 10 of you, and I'm just guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason you're up late is maybe you're on your phone, or maybe you spent extra time wasting on your laptop or your phone watching something. So if we want to cultivate that, if we want to tackle that, then putting your phone away, like keeping it away, or maybe if there's like, say if you're looking to kick a habit of drinking, then hanging out with people that drink isn't going to help you, right? They're gonna just make you will be more inclined to drink. So whatever it is that you feel that you want to break, whatever bad habits you want to break, you need to block it out, like consciously, physically block it out, mentally block it out. So when I say physically, creating a barrier, so putting it in different rooms, keeping a distraction, like think of your room as well. Like think of your room and think of which things are helping me and which things aren't helping me. So even if it means physically creating that block. So this is an interesting verse in the Gita. Maybe somebody can read this one out.
I shall try.
Yeah, please go ahead.
It is lust only, Arjun, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so what basically Arjuna asks is, what impels a man to act as if even like not being controlled, but what compels a man to act even though he's not like able to control himself, like even if we consciously don't want to do something, what makes us do it? And Krishna answers like, the answer is lust. The answer is that sense gratification, that craving that we want. So but the Gita kind of puts it straight there, like, okay, you know, like it's the lust, that little craving, that little sense gratification that we want. Even though we know it's a bad habit, we still want to do it. We still want to, you know, engage with it. Here's a thing I got from Atomic Habits, and there's 4 triggers or 4 things that happen when we see something that we respond to, or a habit we respond to. So the first is a cue. So for example, let's say you're at work, or let's say you're doing a task, like let's say you're writing a really important email, and then you get stuck writing that email, so your mind goes blank. And what can happen is your mind going blank could become a cue. Your mind has kind of got this into a habit of it becoming a cue that you check your phone when your mind goes blank. So you get a craving. A craving happens in your mind that says, check your phone, check your phone, check your phone. So what happens? You check your phone, you open up your phone, you check your phone, and on your phone you check Instagram. No, sorry, let's do logically. You check WhatsApp. Okay, you check your WhatsApp messages, who's responded, who's not responded. And then so then you act. You get the craving, you act. That's the response. And your brain gets a reward. Okay, I checked my WhatsApp. Now, but what happens is that reward from the WhatsApp is also becomes the cue for you to now check Instagram. So you get now a craving. Okay, I've been on WhatsApp. Now I'm going to check Instagram. I've got a craving of checking that. So I'll respond. I'll check on Instagram, and I'll get a reward because on Instagram, I've got a few more likes, and I just check how many likes I've got on Instagram. And okay, great. Somebody's also commented. Now that I've checked Instagram, this is a great cue for me to now check on YouTube. So I'll check YouTube. Okay, let's just see, like, okay, the videos got the craving, response, reward. And now I'll check the dating app, you know, like, I don't know which one there are, right? Bumble or Hinge. Okay, so now I'll check the dating app. Okay, so then this loop continues. So, you know, so the Gita talks about it. It's the cue. We get the cue, we get the cravings. The craving is the lust. We get the response, and we get the reward. Now we have to be conscious. How do we block that cue in the first place? So we have to be very conscious and think about it. The first thing we need to do is keep that cue away. And I'll talk about good habits in a second. We can reprogram this to have good cues, to have better cravings and better responses and better rewards. But what is really important that you understand and identify what are the bad cues and bad cravings that you have. And maybe, I think time is short, unfortunately. I think this could have been a workshop, longer session. But right now I would get you guys to think of, maybe if you can also write it on the chat. Think of a cue that you get for a habit that you don't want. Maybe just reflect on it, and if you want, you can write it on the chat. But I'll move on. The Gita talks about this very nicely, okay? So I don't know if everyone can see this, but this is a chariot. Apologies for the lack of quality on the picture. Literally, half an hour before I created this presentation. You can see here, you've got the soul. The soul is being driven. The soul is driven by the intelligence. The intelligence is carrying the reins. The reins is the mind, and the horses are the senses. So our soul is obviously what we really want to connect with. Like we mentioned, the first habit was hearing. The hearing helps you connect with your soul, and becoming in the mode of goodness helps you stay with that connection. And then you want to block that bad habit. So what we're trying to do is connect with the soul. Now, what happens is when our intelligence, right, if we're using the mode of goodness by using our intelligence, we can control the mind and we control the senses. But what happens is if our cravings are controlled by the senses, then the Gita describes that the horses go all over the place in an uncontrolled manner. So we're not basically in charge. Actually, it's the senses that are in charge. Your senses are connecting with everything. So yeah, just share on the chat if you're resonating with this or not. If this is making sense. If this is if you're understanding this. Just you can just write on the chat if you are connecting with it. So otherwise I can explain it a bit more. But yeah, the senses are moving in different directions. If we're controlled by the senses, it's literally going all over the place, and our soul, we're being just taken for a ride. But really, the soul is the passenger, which then guides the intelligence. So we want to get to the point where we guide that intelligence, we control the mind, which then controls the senses. Okay, so we're almost there. Importance. So block the bad habits, but give importance to the good habits. And we have to prioritize. Okay, we only have 24 hours in a day. I don't know how much some of you guys sleep. Some of you might sleep shorter, some of you longer. I need at least 8 hours. But we only have, 24 hours in a day minus sleep. So we have to prioritize which things we're going to do and which things we're not going to do. So first, you have to hear. You hear which habits are important. You act in the mode of goodness. You block the bad habits, and then you start prioritizing your most important habits that are going to bring you to whatever character and destination that you want. Now, this is something I got from the 7 habits. I found this really amazing, actually. I use this myself. Time management matrix. So it breaks it up into 4 quadrants. Okay. So it talks about, so there's urgent things that are important. Now, this is generally crisis. Like there's a deadline. There's things happening last minute. I need to get this done. It's very important. So you want to tackle that first. Okay, you're trying to tackle. Okay, it's important. It's urgent. I need to do it first. Then you've got important but non-urgent. Okay, so it's like being interrupted, getting random calls from someone, random meetings, or being invited to a birthday party. Okay, it's important, but depends who the person is whose birthday party is. But yeah, being invited to things where maybe they're not actually that important. Your friends could be going out every week, and then you think, actually, is this moving me into the right direction or not? So yeah, you can think of examples, and this is a great activity for you to do at home in your own time. So what's urgent and not important? What's urgent and important? Then you move into the quadrant of not urgent but important. Now this is the quadrant you want to make sure that you're moving most of your life towards. Okay, so you should try and be cultivating this number 2 as much as possible, and that is what's important but not urgent. You want to move everything from urgent to important to not urgent. I hope that makes sense. And what I mean by that is what's important but not urgent. It means the things you're trying to cultivate, the habits you're trying to cultivate over a long period. For example, waking up early, chanting, reading, exercising. These things are important. Yes, they're not urgent because there's no time on it, but you want to integrate it into your life, into your day-to-day, into your routine, building relationships, connecting with others, clarifying your values, clarifying what you want in life, spending time with yourself. These things this is the quadrant you want to basically be most in. And quadrant number 4, you want to try and eliminate as much as possible. Not important, not urgent. Trivial activities, escape activities. Like, again, I'll go to the example of, watching something random on YouTube. It's not important, it's not urgent, it's not moving me anywhere towards my goal or my activity. Anything that wastes time. Okay, so you want to try and move away from that. One really, really solid way of getting to this point every Sunday. Now, I took this on board after reading the book, and I'm sharing it with you because it helped me. Every Sunday, I would actually make a list of all of the things I need to do that week based on these things. So I would look at my quadrant, and obviously over time I eliminated the other ones, but I'd look at the quadrant of what are my most important things I want to achieve, and then I'd look at planning my week into my diary of what I want to achieve that week. Okay, so every day I want to go for a run. Every day I want to wake up early. Every day I want to read 20 pages. Every day I want to journal. Whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, so that can really help once a week. And even better, on top of that, when you start your morning, making a list of things you want to do, you know, and I'll get to lists in a second, but creating a list of prioritizing what are the most important things. So what you're automatically doing with this is you're consciously giving importance to the activities that make the most difference in your life. So it's about highlighting what, you know, what is important. And what will happen is in your life, automatically, you'll start forming these habits, cultivating these habits naturally, because your mind is consciously focused on it week to week, right? Day to day. So anything you focus on, like in this kind of way, it becomes a habit, it becomes natural. It's like, you know, say if you say if you're trying to buy a car, right? Like you're buying I don't know, a Ford Focus, right? You're looking at Ford Focuses, and what happens is when you're driving, you end up just seeing loads of Ford Focuses. I've never bought a Ford Focus before, so no disrespect to anyone that has a Ford Focus. But yeah, if you know, your mind kind of thinks about that, it just reappears. So that can happen. Okay, so the last two we're getting to. So the T is track. I remember we had a retreat recently at the Lincoln Center. It was amazing. Had a great time, and we had two monks, senior monks that came. One of them was from Mumbai, and he's like quite a senior monk. He's in his 50s, but also very young. His name was Vaj Bihari. Some of you might have joined. He did a really amazing journaling session, and I remember going into his room because I just went to see how he is, but actually I went to like see what he's up to and, you know, how he conducts his day and just get some wisdom from him. And I just sat with him and I was like, hey, how's it going? How are you finding the talk? So, you know, there's some free time, and he was showing me like his diaries, and he was showing me his journals. And one of the amazing things he showed me, now this guy is a senior monk. He's been doing it for ages, like, you know, 20 plus years, maybe 30 years. And he showed me he had basically a habit tracker. He had a list of all the habits that he wants to do. And every day he would tick what he has done and what he hasn't done. And I was just amazed. I was like, dude, I mean, I didn't say dude to him on his face, but you know, in my head, I was thinking, dude, you're such a senior person, and you're filling out your habit tracker every day. Like, you're putting me to shame. Like, you know, like, I mean, I understand this is good and you should do this, and I don't do it, but, you know, he's got no one like holding him account to it or anything. And he was showing me it, and every day at the end of the day, he ticks. What has he done? What has he not done? And he was telling me that really interesting point. He was telling me, he said, Raj, like, what I do is when I look at this habit tracker, every day I then reflect. And if I notice I haven't ticked one of my habits for the last couple of days, I make sure I prioritize that so I'm not off track. You know, so if I've had a busy time, if I've had a busy day, or if I've had a busy, like he was traveling, he was coming to like, he was in England, he was doing these trips, because if I know that they're not, if I haven't done something like go for a walk or read or whatever, then I identify, okay, this habit I've stopped, and it stops it becoming a distant memory, you know, because what can happen is we start a habit, and before you know it, it's like it's become a distant memory, you know. It's like, yeah, oh yeah, you know, like you tell your friends, oh yeah, I've started this new habit, I'm gonna do running every day. You do it for 2 weeks, and then you miss a day, you miss 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and then you see your friends again, how's the running going? And I was like, oh, it's not going so well. You know, I'm not running so much. Because yeah, it just gets away from you. So this is why tracking habits makes such a difference. So here's an example of a habit tracker. So yeah, you can use this if you want. We often use it in spiritual circles as well. Sadhana sheets, sometimes they call it. But yeah, there is a science behind it. You put in the habits that you want to cultivate. You tick the habits that you're doing and completing, and people swear by this. You know, they swear by this. Okay, so the last S in the habits that culminates all of these habits is service. So maybe somebody could just read this last quote out for us.
I'll do it. Devotional service to the Lord is not an activity of this material world. It is part of the spiritual world, where eternity, bliss, and knowledge predominate.
Thank you so much. So yeah, we have to act. Everything we do centers around serving, you know, like whatever it is we're doing. So it could be, you know, I always say this, and I say this a lot in my talks, is whatever you're doing, if you're a mother, you're serving your children. If you're a father, you're serving your children. If you're a husband, you're serving your wife. Whatever it is, if you're working, you're serving, you know, a purpose. Whatever we do, we're serving in one way or another. And by culminating these habits, you have to understand we're trying to do things in service. And if we can utilize our habits and think of being in a consciousness where my habit can help others, my habit can serve others, my habit can connect with the divine in service, then your habit becomes even more instilled into your DNA, because your DNA is of being an eternal servant of the Supreme. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way. Some of these who are new, people who are new and heard this terminology before, but connecting with the divine through devotional service, the Bhagavad-gita talks about bhakti yoga, is essentially part of our natural soul's DNA. So for us to get to the essence of creating and keeping good habits, we have to formulate bhakti yoga into our day-to-day through service. You know, so everything we're doing is leading to that point of bhakti yoga, which is what, you know, the Bhagavad-gita talks about. So it's now the end. We got through the acronyms. H standard for hearing. A standard for acting in goodness. B standard for block the bad. I standard for importance, giving importance to the habits that make the most impact and significance. And for T standard for track your habits. And the S was service. So utilizing these habits in service. Now, yeah, I'm going to open it up now for questions, and you know, you can be as ask as many difficult or be as like harsh as you want if I'm saying like, okay, this is all good in theory, etc. So yeah, if there's any questions, and I'll hand over to Saj. Yeah, maybe we can have a bit of a discussion and open up the floor. It'd be good to hear from people as well, what their thoughts are on habits.
Thank you so much, Raj Mukund. That was brilliant. That acronym really helped to kind of encapsulate all the things that kind of are relative to habits, and you went in depth in all of those. And I really, that picture you shared of the horses and the soul and the intelligence is actually one of my favorite images and analogies from the Bhagavad-gita. If anyone has any questions, you can share them in the chat and we'll fire them Raj's way. But some of the reflections that I had from what you were saying is essentially satisfying short-term cravings in order to feed our desire for immediate pleasure is really an impediment to forming good habits. And it's something that we all fall into because we're conditioned in a way materially, whether it's through our phone or through those cues that you shared to seek that immediate dopamine or that immediate pleasure instead of the long-term gain. Another reflection I had from what you're saying is forming a good habit is essentially the byproduct of imbibing the characteristics that define the purpose of that habit. So you gave the analogy of like running a marathon. Don't think about running a marathon, think about being, how can I be a better runner, for example.
Yeah, it's like Keisha Swami gives this quote, like, don't give up what you want most with what feels good now.
Yeah.
And that's to your first point, you know, like we have to really harness and hone in on this thing that, you know, not to regret things, you know, like not looking back and regretting, oh, you know, I really wish I did wake up in the morning, or I did really wish I did, you know, do the things I wanted to. You could probably ask yourself, and maybe people can ask themselves this question: what things do you really value in life? Like, what things do you really value in your life, and what things do you really feel are important in your day-to-day in terms of, you know, habits?
I really found myself nodding along. Sorry, you were going to say.
Yeah, no.
Well, when you spoke about the 5 impacts of the mode of goodness, I really felt like those are such. It's almost like when you go bowling and it's your first time and you need the barriers up on the side to help get you to the pins. Better health, better decisions, better character, and better relationships around you are all of those things that can guide you and keep you from kind of, you know, slipping off towards that cue, craving, response, and reward. Let's have a look at the chat, see if we've got any questions. Otherwise, I'll ask you a couple. Okay, so Jade's saying, Jade, thank you for sharing. You're saying it feels like we also need willingness to want to change before we actually begin with new habits. So what advice would you give for getting this willingness for change? And also, when we do start new habits, how do we stop beating ourselves up when it doesn't go perfectly and we fall?
Yeah.
Great question.
Thank you so much, Jade. Really, really nice question. Both questions. The first one is the willingness for change. Willingness for change can be triggered by some different points, you know, like different things can bring you. It could be like a lack of fulfillment in life, or a stage where you reach where you're not fulfilled or not satisfied. But that willingness to change can vary, because sometimes what happens is, say if you're not fulfilled in life and then you're going for a bad patch, then you turn to spirituality, you're looking for fulfillment, things in your life become better, and then you're like, I don't need spirituality anymore, like, I am done with it, so I'll just leave it for now and then I'll come back to it when I, you know. So that willingness can waver. Now, what can really keep you within that consciousness, and it goes to the first habit I was talking about, and actually I'll expand on that habit, actually, hearing. Okay, so when we talk about hearing, 2 things, and if I just go a bit more deeper into that, one is hearing spiritual people, so reading, listening to podcasts, etc. What that does is it opens up your mind, it opens up your perspective, it opens up your vision. Okay, so understanding, seeing, etc. But there's also an extension to that is when you're then hearing, the hearing brings you to a point to want to practice, to act in the goodness. And that acting in the goodness means associating with spiritual people, you know, spending time with spiritualists, spending time doing spiritual activities, spending time, you know, doing things that are good for you, And when you do that, you end up becoming, it becomes a loop, right? It becomes a loop where you end up getting a taste. You end up feeling the difference between what it is like when I do things in the mode of goodness, and what it is like to associate with spiritual people, be around them. How does that feel versus how I used to feel? Okay. And what I always like to give an analogy of is a spiral staircase. Okay. So we're either moving up we're either moving up the spiral staircase, or we're moving down the spiral staircase. And generally we kind of know internally, and when we look back, okay, how am I feeling right now? How is my, how, when I look back at my life, am I doing things that are moving me up, or am I doing things that are moving me down? So that willingness to change really is inspired by the constant hearing, the constant associating, because a key way to instill a habit is associating with people that are already doing that habit. So you're naturally going to become more inclined to become more spiritual, become, so the willingness is naturally instilled in you. So yeah, so that is, like, I would say that is the key thing, to constantly try to hear, constantly try to associate. And the point of not beating yourself up about is things not going perfectly, is celebrating the wins. So it talks about, like, even if you do something, like, say for example, waking up early. Okay, a lot of you mentioned that, so I'll just give that an example. Even if you wake up 5 minutes earlier than your normal time, right, you have to celebrate that win. Okay, so I woke up 5 minutes earlier than my normal time. It's much better than what I did before. So if you want to reading one page is better than reading no pages. So constantly you have to look back and celebrate that small increment, that small win, wherever it is. And actually, even in your mind, just get to that point where, you're just doing even if it's difficult, the littlest as possible. And that can make such a big difference, right? So yeah, don't beat yourself up if you fail, but look back and celebrate the little things that you might have achieved, or positive things.
Thank you for encapsulating that. So those two things, I think I definitely agree with the taking association is something which lights a fire within you, because you become into proximity with what it's like to be spiritually energized, and it kind of rubs off on you, and you develop this willingness to want to change. And the other thing that can help with not beating yourself up is what we're doing now. It's kind of called like Sangha, where people come together, and everyone's been vulnerable enough to share that, getting up early is a difficult thing. So you realize you're not kind of going through that on your own, which is really helpful. So taking that collective accountability in spaces like this can be helpful, or with people around you in your circle.
That's a really good point, Saj. Like, being with people that encourage you and having that association, that Sangha that you mentioned, it's so valuable. And which is why, like, we have these like circles, or we have these, like, in Think Gita, we try to engineer a little group where you basically encourage each other. And I see sometimes on the WhatsApps, some of you guys are like, sharing little podcasts, little videos, little messages. I don't know who's in the circles on the call today, but you're always like trying to encourage each other. So yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, Saj. Yeah, these things can really make a difference.
Yeah. Thank you so much valuable, so many gems you shared today with us. So thank you for collating that, and at such short notice with the slides as well. They looked great.